everybody, it's me, Alexa, and today we're going to be talking about Krack. So, Krack is a recent film that just came out earlier this year, directed by Gopichand Melaneni and starring Ravi Teja and Shruti Hassan. I have been really excited to watch it ever since I saw the trailers for it, and then especially once I saw the reviews. It got really great audience reception and critic reception, and I completely understand why now that I've seen it. It's definitely one of my favorite films I've seen so far this year, and let's talk about why. Really quick though, I do want to let y'all know that this is of course a spoiler-free review, so even if you haven't seen the film yet, feel free to keep on watching because I promise not to spoil anything for you. So to put the story as baseline as possible, it's a cop Moss film. However, they did utilize some different techniques, and they had a few different elements about it that I appreciated. One thing that I did really enjoy about the film is we actually got to be told bits of the story from the villains of the tale, which was really fascinating because we start out, the first shot, and it was in the trailer and stuff too, there's a mango, a 50 rupee note, and a nail, and we get to learn about why those three objects are all significant to three different villains of the story, or antagonists, whichever word you want to use. And the way that the story evolves, where we slowly learn what each item means, I thought was really engaging and fun. There's one nitpicky comment I could make, and I'm gonna say it. I wish maybe they kind of did a mixture of storytelling and also just from Ravi's perspective, because he's of course our lead character. And I wish maybe they stayed true to one of those more, they kind of pretend like I was telling a story, but then I just switched completely to Ravi's perspective for the whole part of telling the story. So it would have been nice if maybe they committed a bit more. However, I liked how they told it all from Ravi's perspective, so I don't want them to change it, if that makes any sense. So it did work really well, but that's just a nitpicky technical thing that you could say wasn't executed 100% properly. But the execution was really enjoyable, so again, that's just a super nitpicky thing. So I have actually seen two other films by this director starring Ravi Teja, Don Sinu and Balupu. One thing I found interesting was the similarity of a titling technique between this film and Balupu, which I'm probably pronouncing wrong, I'm sorry. But you know what I mean, B-A-L-U-P-U. In that both the films where the title of it translates to Ravi Teja's character's flaw. Of course, for this one, Krack kind of translates to hot-headedness, which I actually didn't know when watching the movie. I didn't find that out till after, but I thought that was just a really interesting thing. It was especially interesting knowing already that there's Balupu, which means arrogance, and that was that character's flaw. Now we have this one's flaw with his, hot-headedness, aggression, etc. And I like how that was utilized throughout the whole film. I don't know if he quite, learned his lesson by the end with that character development, but it was still fun. And there's definitely room for a sequel to be made off of this, and with how much of a box office success it was, I'm thinking that they're probably going to. Besides the one nitpick thing that I actually enjoyed still, I pretty much don't have any other negatives to say about it, and that wasn't even negative, so I quite enjoyed this movie. I mean, the music done by Taman S was really great. He nailed it again. Such upbeat songs that fit the movie really well. Every time a song came on, I really enjoyed it, so great work with that. We also had acting. I really like Ravi Teja. I think he has such great, charisma on screen, and he has such great comedy about all of his movements that it's just enjoyable to watch. He's known for his Moss movies because he has that energy that just suits Moss movies so well. Because he has he can have that kind of power about him while also being comedic and also having a strength about it, and it's just really well done how he carries himself on screen, and it translates perfectly into these Moss films, the way that he acts, and it's just really great. And then also of course Shruti Hassan. I really liked how she did the character. There's this one moment with her near the end. I'm not going to go into more detail. If you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about, that I absolutely loved. Whenever it started, I was like, yes, I'm cheering in my living room about it. I would have loved to see that moment in theaters. I bet it would have been a lot of fun. But oh well, still COVID in my area. But she did a great job all throughout. That scene with her, as well as a few other ones, is really cool because you can see the seeds planted. You know, everything about the story builds up to each other. So once something happens, you can be like, whoa, where'd that come from? But then once you reflect on the rest of the movie, you can see, oh, okay, there's this moment and this moment, and that makes sense. And I really appreciate that about a movie, because one of my pet peeves with films is whenever they have a plot twist that doesn't make sense. It's you're it's just there to be a surprise, and the only reason it's surprise is because it doesn't make sense. That's a big pet peeve. So whenever a film so perfectly has these like moments and plot twists, you know, because there's a few all throughout, just like most Indian films. You know, there's one like in intermission, there's a couple near the end, and these Mass Indian films rather. You know, you got a few little twists and turns there to surprise the audience, and every single one makes sense and works within the story. So that is always something that I'll give a big 2 thumbs up to. On to cinematography, it was also really well done, very fun. They had some cool shots. Nothing too crazy though. Also, I do actually have one smaller nitpick again, I almost forgot about it, with the color grading. It always looked really beautiful, but there were some times where there were these really intense colors that were simply unmotivated. Like there wasn't a reason for it to have these colors past the point that it looked really cool. And again, it looked dope, so this isn't like a huge complaint, but from a technical aspect, you could say that unmotivated light is like a big thing, and also unmotivated color, because it's like it wouldn't really make sense for it to be that color, and so it looks cool, but why? But the color grading did create some really cool moments. Like there's this one scene at a bus station that has really great use of shadow and lights, and it creates a really cool effect. And I enjoyed watching that scene a lot because of how it looked with the color grading. But again, the color grading that they had was so intensely a color that didn't quite make sense. It worked for the scene though. That one was a smaller issue. There's a few others that were more noticeable, but like it still was not fully motivated why it was like that, but it looked dope. One other thing I really liked about the film is the fact that it was kind of like more adult. Because normally Maas films are, you know, targeted for the whole family. And this one I think still could be whole family, but there's a few moments that, you know, I'd want my kid to be a little bit older before I let them watch it. But they discussed some things. So they had a few like brutal moments with the fight, and that was one of the things that made it more adult. But they also discussed some things that aren't normally discussed in many Indian films I've seen, but especially not these Maas films. Like they discussed, like they made it very clear, like there's never any sex scenes or anything like that, but it made it very clear that Ravi and his wife were still having sex, like, you know, and you felt that tension, like you could see the moments. So it's very implied that that's what was about to happen, you know, and that's normally something that's kind of just ignored and glossed over a lot in these films. So that was really cool that they kind of were normalizing that a bit, because of course it's very normal for a husband and wife to be having intercourse, normal thing, and so it's cool to kind of see that in the movie. That paired with some really rough violence in a few sequences made it feel a bit more like an adult Maas film, which as an adult I really appreciated. It was really enjoyable to watch. It added this level of maturity to it that I found refreshing and really fun. I love Maas films, as I've said before. I really enjoy them, especially Telugu Maas films are the ones I've seen the most. I've seen a lot of Telugu Maas films, and I really, really like them. I do continue to enjoy watching them. And so to have this one have similar formula, but just a slight difference, I really appreciated, because I've seen a few who try to do things differently, and sometimes execution's not quite right or something else, but I feel like this one did a really great job of being extremely similar to Maas, but just having a few little tweaks in it to make it a bit more adult and a bit different from the normal formula of Telugu Maas films. And of course there are other films that do that across all the different industries, but I hadn't really seen something have it so heavily implied and have such rough violence in like full just Maas film, especially a Telugu Maas film. I haven't seen any of those films yet, so I found that to be refreshing. Yeah, overall, I really, really liked this film. As I've said throughout this, as I discussed the different sections, it is going to be getting a Tiger Shark rating, because I really loved it, but it wasn't one of my all-time favorite movies. It's just one that I really enjoy though, and definitely would like to rewatch. Maybe if I rewatch it and like it just as much or more, I'd put it up to the Great White, but from one watch of it, Tiger Shark is where it's sitting with me. What do you guys think it should be? What shark rating would you guys give it? There's a link in the description to my video that explains my shark rating if you're not sure what the heck I'm talking about. Feel free to check that out. Alright, that's all I have to say about Krack. Let me know your thoughts on it down below in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe while you're down there. Alright, thank you all so much for watching again. Hope you guys are staying safe out there and have an absolutely amazing day. Bye!